Welcome to the Energetically You podcast, where we will be talking about healthy habits, abundant mindset, and optimal wellness. I'm your host, Megan Swan, creator of the Sustainable Integrated Wellness Approach. At 30, I sold everything and went on my own eat, pray, love journey, if you will. And now, at 41, I'm still on my first stop here in Mexico, loving life and feeling more energy than ever before. This podcast is for ambitious women who are looking to level up their energy so that they feel happier and more productive throughout their day in all of their projects and passions. Inside, we are going to be talking about ways to truly tune in to our minds and bodies in new ways to leverage our natural energy sources. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Energetically You. Today, I'm sitting here with Scott Aaron, a LinkedIn expert, author, business coach, and podcaster who I met on LinkedIn. And we have been chatting back and forth. I really enjoy his content and his energy, his way of really inspiring people to make better connections. So looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Megan. And it's an honor and privilege to be here and looking forward to diving in.
Amazing. So is it okay if we start talking about resilience? Because I know that's one of your favorite topics. Can
100%.
you tell us a little bit about your rags to riches story?
Wow. Yeah, it's pretty, it's definitely a deep story. And, there's definitely been some ups and downs. And, I always look back on my journey with no regrets, because things progressively have to happen the way that they do in order for you to get to where you want to be. And I heard this quote today, and it said, the peak of one mountain is the beginning and the bottom of the next. And I think that's very profound, because we're always navigating through life. Growing up, I was the nice guy, quote unquote, that got picked on a lot because I was an easy target. I kind of, took it on the chin a lot, and just kind of, was still very liked and admired by my peers. It was just, I was an easy target. And I just got picked on, and you kind of, that doormat mentality, when that happens at such a young age, it rears its head in certain ways as an adult. And that did lead to some relationships not working out for the best. But again, you gain that emotional maturity as you get older. So, I've been divorced a couple times, but learned so much through those relationships. And again, people hear divorce and they think failure. I feel success, because there's a certain level of maturity and understanding that people need to have to call it quits and to acknowledge that things aren't working out. And I think that there's more of a responsibility for people to actually say, hey, let's move in different directions, than those that actually stay in it for the wrong reasons. And in my second divorce, we had a child together. My son's 9 now. So there was definitely some deeper things that needed to be worked through, and it's still navigating through it. But again, I think that there's such a positive thing that comes from two adults recognizing that, yeah, this wasn't right. There were certain things that were, obviously, having a child, that was a beautiful thing, but as a relationship together, it wasn't. And, led me to finding the woman of my dreams and my wife, Nancy. And from a business standpoint, there were a lot of ups and downs, and I was involved in the health and wellness industry for, I would say still I'm a practitioner of health and wellness now for 24 years, almost 25 years now, for, more than half my life. I started in the wellness industry at 18. And the way that kind of transcended, my father was the fitness pioneer of the family. He still competes in bench press contests. He's 69 now, holds some national, American and world records in the bench press, still personal trains. But prior to getting into the wellness industry, when I was 18, he was in regular brick and mortar businesses in certain industries, and got caught up in one that ended up becoming an insurance fraud case that landed him in federal prison for 2.5 years when I was a freshman going into my sophomore year of college, which flipped the script on everything because, my father, understanding his mistakes and his demise, knowing that he was going to be going away, he needed to leave something to the family, myself, my mother, and my sister, so we had some income to survive. And he, with the help of my two grandfathers and my dad, they purchased the right to a failing health club in downtown Philadelphia that when my father did go away 8 months later, for 2.5 years, the keys were turned over to me. So I had to learn as a teenager how to be an adult. And I don't think anyone is ever really prepared for that. But when I always go back to resiliency, I had to really navigate through some really choppy waters in order to get to where I am. And it was one of the best experiences in my life. I wouldn't change it for anything. And, I grew the gym from about 300 members to nearly 1,200 by the time my father came back. We opened up a second location a year later. And in 2003, we sold both gyms for $1 million. So at 24 years old, I became a millionaire, which was never the intention. The intention was to continue to build locations, but an offer was made. And, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, $1 million, even now it's still a lot of money, but back then it was even more. So we kind of just personal trained and helped the new owners of the gyms kind of navigate through taking over ownership. And then another opportunity presented us to open up another flagship location, outside of the parameters of what we were allowed. So we went to the more on the outskirts of Philadelphia, to the burbs area, thinking we could recreate what we created in the city, and wasn't the case. It was a great experience, but it was much different. This was a gym you had to drive to, and there was a parking lot. It was on the second floor, so you had to walk up. The ones in the city, they were part of the city block. You opened the door, you walked in, it was there. And because of my father's past, the only person that had the credit to finance the making of this new gym was me. So I didn't really know what that meant at the time. You just do what you're responsible for as a member of the family. I signed on the dotted lines. But about, I would say, 8-9 years later, it's now, 2013, 2012, 2013, I was about $1.5 million in liability debt at this time. So you talk about rags to riches, in a nine-year period, I went from being a millionaire to being over $1.5 million in debt, personally liable for that. So, my father and I definitely had some rough patches. We did break our partnership, and I took over the gym full time, and he went to go train at another location. And it took us a couple of years to really repair that, but it was a good break for the both of us. We had been working side by side together every single day from 1998 until 2015, 17 years of just work every day. And, we couldn't even hang out and not talk about the gym. We had lost our father-son relationship. It just became all about business all the time. My parents ended up getting divorced for numerous reasons through this process. My cousin, who was a business partner, ended up leaving for personal reasons. So a lot of things were falling apart at the seams. And I just had to take control. I just couldn't allow things to fall apart anymore. Between my divorces, and I remember I was selling off a property that I owned in downtown Philadelphia, and I had about $30,000 worth of equity in the house. And when I was at closing, I got a check for $820. And what I didn't realize at the time, but I knew then, obviously, is one of the documents that I signed for was a personal business loan that was using my house as collateral in case something happened to the gym. So when I sold my property, whatever the balance of that loan was, the proceeds of my house went towards paying off that debt. And that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And it led to the division of the partnership between myself and my father. And it also allowed me to step into thinking about, okay, what else can I do? Like, this gym is literally just, it's the weight of the world is on my shoulders. I'm responsible for everything. I had a successful personal training business. The gym was just getting by, some months losing $1,000 to $2,000 a month. So I was the first one there, the last one to leave, and the one that never got paid. And it was a struggle. And then I got into the online marketing world in 2013, doing online wellness. And I saw the opportunity that the internet provided because, I was just used to the four walls that surrounded me as a trainer. And you can relate to this as an ex-yoga instructor. If you're not teaching a yoga class, you're not getting paid. Just like me, if I wasn't training someone, I wasn't getting paid. And someone asked me a very interesting question one day, and they said, listen, if you got sick or injured where you couldn't train people or something happened to the gym, how would you earn a living? And that question scared the shit out of me because I was facing my business mortality. I didn't know how else I would earn income. And that really pushed me to find out other ways. For me, I'm a resilient person. If this doesn't work, I try something else. If that doesn't work, I try something else until that dart sticks in the dartboard. So I don't throw spaghetti at the wall hoping it sticks. I need to have a clear vision of where I want to go. So this culminated in the decision in 2016, just about 6 years ago, to file for personal bankruptcy to close my final gym. Now, a lot of people hear that word and like, oh my God, your life is over. My life just began. This was what people don't realize, this was my opportunity to erase 18 years of struggle, of carrying debt and liability and all of those things. So when I was sitting with my attorney and he said, listen, you have two options. You can continue going down this road, taking the profits that you're making from being a personal trainer and your online wellness business, funneling it into your failing business for as long as you want. Or you can file for personal bankruptcy, get this monkey off your back, and start focusing on living your life. And he said on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a slam dunk, 1 being don't do it, he said, you're a 9.5. So the decision was already made. That was July 1st of 2016. I signed the papers and I closed the gym 30 days later. And I never looked back. And, I share all those things with people because, again, people see the glory of what my wife and I are doing now, but they don't know the story behind it. They don't know all of the pain and trials and tribulations and bumps in the road. That's why I know for certain I will always find a way of how to be successful because I learned how to fail first. No one learns how to succeed without failing initially. And I can tell you, I've had a ton of failures in my life, a ton, but I don't see them as failures. I see them as lessons. And those lessons are what really build the framework and the foundations to living the life that you really deserve.
Can you kind of pinpoint? Did you always look at it that way, even when you were in it? Or was there like a turning point where you really started looking at failure as a gift, if you will?
It was something very intuitive to me. I've always been an intuitive thinker, an outside the box thinker. I can remember back in the day, it was, I think the summer of 2000 or 2001. And, I was sitting at the computer at the desk and I'm like, what can we create right now to, because we had so much foot traffic. And I said, the summer's approaching. So I sat at the computer and I just typed up a flyer, join today for $99 for the summer. And I sat outside, took a stool, I sat outside the front door of the gym, and I just started handing out flyers to people that walked by. And we ended up signing 30 people that day. So brought in an extra $3,000 that day. My dad said, that was brilliant. Brilliant. I remember, how can I create more income off of personal training where I don't have to continue all these hours? So I started a boot camp. And what I would do is I would have people pay X amount of dollars for a month. I would do 2 classes a week. They pay for 8 classes. And the first time I launched it, I had like 30 people sign up. And it allowed me to start cutting back on some of my hours. I used to meet people at the grocery store and help them food shop. And I used to say to them, listen, stay to the 4 outside corners of the grocery store because all the crap is in the middle. And I would walk around with them and I would literally help them pick out their groceries. So it just came very intuitive to me to try new things, to try something else, try that, try this. When I launched my online personal training business, I didn't really know what I was doing, but I used to handwrite workouts, right? So I just started converting those handwritten workouts into Excel documents and started writing out workout after workout. And within 10 months, grew an $80,000 online personal training business, like out of thin air. So if you don't try, you never will. So for me, the resiliency came from never settling for mediocrity. No one wakes up saying, you know what, I want to live a pretty mediocre life. I'm not good at sitting still. I need to be challenged. I don't like monotony. Now, I'm good with system, structure, and repetition. I learned that as a personal trainer. But I always need to be in that growth mindset space in my head. What can I do to stretch myself? Because I always look to my son for inspiration. And this being a mother of 2 kids, our kids challenge us every single day. And you see their growth. You see all the things that they're learning and they're achieving. And we're all kids inside. We're just, some of us have a little less hair and we're, a little bit older. So you can always learn new things. And, when you stop learning, you stop living. So my whole belief system is, what can I do to challenge myself on a professional or personal level that is going to be investing back in me, that's going to make me a better version of myself?
Tell us you got into the online space early on. And how long have you been focusing on LinkedIn, and what was what was the source of that pivot?
It's been about 8.5, almost 9 years on LinkedIn now, 2013. I originally signed up for my LinkedIn account in 2009, but as most people, they signed up for it and it's been collecting dust ever since. So in 2013, I logged back on and I'm like, there's got to be something here. And this is what kind of pushed me to it. So I was at a personal development conference. And this is when I was really focusing on my online wellness practice. And the person who was hosting the event, brought up some guests on stage, and they were going through this exercise about, how important conversations and relationships are with people in order to grow a business. And, these people were sharing how large their business was and how much income they were bringing in by the amount of people they were impacting. And he kept asking them the same question. How many conversations have you had to have in this time period to achieve this? And the smallest amount of conversations I heard was 7,000. And my first thought was, oh shit, I'm doing this wrong, because I was doing what everybody else was doing on Facebook, right? When you're only allowed 5,000 friends. And then I started to look at the inner workings of LinkedIn, where you're allowed 30,000 connections. The median income is $100,000 a year or more, and the average age of someone is 35 to 55. So I started to realize that this is not about just the quantity of conversations I need to have. It's about the quality of conversations I need to have. So I hopped onto LinkedIn, and I remember one of my first mentors said to me, she said, Scott, every day you wake up, you got to look yourself in the mirror and you need to ask yourself this one question: how am I going to connect with myself today? And it was like one of those big light bulb moments where I'm like, oh my God, that's it. I need to connect with more people that are like me, that have my mindset, my focus, my drive, that have the business mindset. I started digging into LinkedIn and reworded some things on my profile, started connecting with people that I felt were good connections, and started messaging, and I started booking call after call. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, my calendar is filling up, because the scariest place for any online entrepreneur to be is when you look at that calendar and nothing is written down. It's just empty. It's just a desert. You're not going to move, your business forward by just hoping and praying the sky opens up and drops people and money into your lap. It just doesn't work that way. You gotta build those connections. So as I was working through this was like August of 2014 now, I reached out to a buddy, Joe, of mine. And I said, Joey, listen, get on LinkedIn. He had a sales background. I said, get on LinkedIn and I want you to do X, Y, and Z of what I knew at the time. And I said, give it 2 weeks and get back to me and let me know what happens. 2 weeks goes by, shoots me a text, and he says, call me. So I called him and I said, what's up? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what's up? And he goes, dude, listen. He goes, whatever you're doing and whatever you told me to do, 100% works. He goes, I've averaged 14 calls the last 2 weeks in a row. He goes, you should be teaching this. And it was like, bing, like, okay. I've been coaching my entire life, just in the wellness space, but all I had to do was convert the skill set that I had as being, a six-figure personal trainer, which is very difficult to do. That means you literally have no time. And, it sounds great to people, but what you need to do to become a six-figure personal trainer is you need to dedicate every hour on the hour to other people and take, hours from yourself away. Mm-hmm. And I was ready to work smarter and not harder. So he said, you should be teaching this. And I said, okay, I know how to coach. I know how to teach. It's what I've been doing my entire life. So one of my first business coaches, he invited me onto his podcast to speak about it. And this is, back in the day, 2014, before podcasting was really big, you used to dial into 1-800-conference call. .com, and you would get some 17-digit PIN code that you would punch in, and it was a live dial call. And I remember I was in my condo. My ex and I had split. I moved into my own place. There was no furniture, and I'm just when I talk and I speak, I walk around a lot. I'm a very active person. And I remember just just walking around, holding my phone, just walking up and down the hallways of my condo, and just going over all the things that I had learned and how it impacted me on LinkedIn. And when I got off that call, I had all these notifications on Facebook. And I opened up my inbox, and there were 8 people that said, can you coach me? Can I hire you? What do you charge? And I'm like, what do I charge? I don't even know. I don't even have what do you mean? I don't have a sales suite. I'm not sure. These people are willing to pay me. And I'm like, so it was another light bulb moment where I'm like, okay, I struck a chord. The best programs are created in 2 fashions. Number one, going through it yourself first and certifying your own self that it has worked for you, so that gives you the certification to now teach others. Best certification you can ever get is called life. If you live through it, you make it through it, you've come out better on the other side, you can teach others how to do the same thing just like you do. The second thing is knowing that there's a hole or a gap in the marketplace that can be filled by something that you can offer. And there is still, to this day, 8 years later, a huge hole and gap in the LinkedIn marketplace where people still do not know how to leverage it the right way. And it's led to the expansion and success of our company, our team, the systems that we have in place. But I had to do the work first. I had to prove the concept first before other people would then make that investment. And if anyone goes to my LinkedIn profile, you can read through nearly 500 written recommendations at this point of people that I've impacted through one of my programs on LinkedIn. And it's what I truly love teaching, because I know how impactful it has been for me, and I know how impactful it can be for someone else.
Yeah, well, I've learned so much from you. I feel like I only discovered your videos, I don't know, 6 months ago, maybe. And I'm a baby on LinkedIn. Like you said, I had an account for, I don't know how many decades, just collecting dust as a yoga teacher in the south of Mexico, or a city that no one's heard of. It wasn't really necessary. And so I'm still learning as I go, but I think, to your point, it's more, the quality of the connections is completely different.
Yes. 100%.
So much more strategic. So tell us where you see it going, because I know, like, it's quite new that they have even the ability to go live, and you've taken advantage of that probably from day one that it was available.
So the interesting thing, LinkedIn is, I believe, always on the forefront of creating the ability to make more meaningful connections on social media. And I don't even consider LinkedIn a social media platform. It's a global networking platform. That's what it is. It's not Facebook. It's not Instagram, even though people try to make it that by taking garbage that they've posted on Facebook and Instagram and try to post it on LinkedIn for clickbait. And clickbait works on any social media platform and channel, for that matter. And it really drives people crazy. The scandalous pictures that people post, the fake inspirational videos from 2004, and just it just gets really diluted. But the one thing that I do love about LinkedIn is that, because you're allowed these 30,000 connections, you can create and curate any network that you want. And, LinkedIn Live, it is so powerful. It took me six applications to actually get approved, because I got in, fairly early on. I was one of the early adapters. I've probably been doing it for about a year and a half now. They're more lenient now with how to get approved for it. But the old credentials, you used to have, I believe, over 10,000 followers or connections, and they reduced that to 150 now. So, because they want more people to use the application, which makes complete sense. And I'm glad they did that, because I help my clients now get approved and start, doing those kind of videos. But they're always on the forefront of trying to find new and interesting ways of having people better connected to their networks, whether it's through the push notifications, which are the happy birthday messages, the work anniversary messages. But I also do like how they really protect our networks, where, they limit the amount of messages you can send a day. They limit the amount of connections you can send per day. They frown upon using automation or software, so they're kicking those people off. They frown upon people that log into someone else's account, acting as them, connecting and messaging for them. But in all honesty, one of the most exciting features that I love is the newsletter feature that LinkedIn has started to roll out. And this is, I don't know if I'm one of the early adapters or not, but not everybody has the ability to do it yet. And you don't have to apply for it. They just, you go to write an article and they'll say, start a newsletter. And I love how they're always thinking of new and inventive ways of really allowing people to stay better connected to their networks, because when you create a newsletter, you're basically carving out your niche for yourself. And, my newsletter is called LinkedIn Tips and Updates. So what do you think you're going to get when you read it? You're going to get LinkedIn Tips and Updates, which is a very powerful thing for people to want to learn. They're on LinkedIn, so it's a reason for them to subscribe. And I've had it for about a month now, and I'm closing in on 5,000 subscribers already. And wow. The cool thing is, when you create a newsletter, LinkedIn sends an invitation for you to every one of your connections to subscribe. But it also sends them a push notification that a new newsletter has been released, but also it will email them personally your newsletter. Mm-hmm. And the other beautiful thing is, with GDPR regulations, which means you can't add people to an email list without their consent, you can now put call to actions in your newsletters, like, download my free resources or book a call. Now those 4,000 or 5,000 people that are subscribed, that are getting that email, can click on it. And now you can start nurturing people outside of LinkedIn, which is even more powerful, because at the end of the day, social media is rented land. If you are solely building your business on social media and you're not building a warm email list outside of it, you are setting yourself up for failure, because God forbid something happens with social media and things shut down or get temporarily suspended. How are you going to stay connected with your audience? So, I just love the progression of LinkedIn. It's only going to get better. They're rolling out a bunch of new things in 2022 that I'm excited for when they are rolled out. And it's just progressive. And they don't stand for bullying. They don't like too many political things. They don't like polarizing things. They want to keep it the way that it should be, which is business networking and collaborating and providing value-added content, at its best.
The newsletter thing is on my radar. I love it. Speaking of connecting, what is the best way for people to find you besides LinkedIn?
ScottAaron.net. My website is obviously a great way. It's got all my social handles on there. Facebook, Scott Aaron. I do have a free Facebook community called LinkedIn Leads for Life, where I do extra trainings in there for people on Facebook. And on Instagram, it's at Scott Aaron LinkedIn. Instagram is more of my, I would say, playful outlet. I do reels every day, and some of them are kind of, just cheeky and fun. Others are, some, overdubbed inspirational quotes and stuff, or, it's a lot of entrepreneurial motivation. So I really try to use each platform differently. I want people to see all sides. Yeah. I just want people to see all sides of me. Facebook is more my personal side. So you see, my hobbies, I collect baseball, sports cards still. So that's a big passion of mine. But, my family, my wife, my dogs, my son, my Jewish heritage. I really like to, use that personal side on Facebook. And then, Instagram is my cheeky fun side. And then LinkedIn is obviously my educational and, business side. So you can find a little bit about all of who I am, on all three of those platforms.
Well, I'm definitely going to follow you on Instagram to get to know your cheeky side. And I feel like we'll be in touch. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Megan. Appreciate you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Energetically You. I hope that this episode has helped you to tune into your natural energy sources so that you feel more energized and focused throughout your day. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to help more ambitious women just like you accomplish their goals. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it on social or in your Instagram stories, and tag me at Megan Swan Wellness. See you soon.